Hello, mic checking one, two, three. Okay, here we are with the third stream. So we have already completed 30% of the book, taking up the rest of the book. Gujarat Files, written by Rana Ayub. Searching and actually sharing the link on Twitter. Let us see who will turn up. Fortunately, my laptop is going good today. Stream is going good, going smooth. Okay, here we are. I was thinking to change the name of the Europe channel. We are close to 1K. I guess we need another 21 followers. वालेकुम अस्सलाम सिनेमैन, हाउ आर यू? कैसे हो आप? कैसे कैसे जा रहे हैं आपके दिन? We are very close to 1K. I think 20 more subscribers and we will cross the number of 1K. And I guess we have completed 635 hours. Yes, if I'm not wrong, we have completed 635 hours. I'm also good, fine, going good. Alhamdulillah. So we will have to complete another 3300 hours at least to get verified on YouTube and to get and to get this channel monetized. It's a long journey, guys. हाँ, अगर आप मुजरा करें, मैं मुजरा करूं, 2 दिन में ये चैनल वेरीफाई हो जाएगी. इट विल टेक अस ओनली 2 days. बट मैं यहाँ पे एक घटिया कंटेंट नहीं डालने वाला. बी इट नेवर एवर. घटिया कंटेंट तो बिल्कुल नहीं आएगा इस चैनल पे, चाहे कुछ भी हो, चाहे कोई सुनने वाला ही ना हो, देखने वाला ही ना हो. कंटेंट हमेशा प्योर आएगा, क्रिएटिव आएगा और अच्छा आएगा. जैसे अभी हम गुजरात फाइल्स पढ़ रहे हैं तो ये बढ़िया कंटेंट है, बहुत बढ़िया कंटेंट. So, as I've already told you, we have already completed 30% of the book. Tonight, I'll try to complete at least another 20-25% of it, which means we'll be completing at least half of the book tonight. Let's hope so. I guess it will take us around 3 days, 3 more days perhaps, to complete this book of Rana Ayub. Walaikum assalam, Ainan. So I too will dedicate my streaming hours to the great Shahid Azmi. जिस तरह राना अयूब ने ये बुक डेडिकेट की है उनकी लाइफ को. अगर आपको फुर्सत मिले तो उन पे एक मूवी भी बनी है, शाहिद. तो वो आप देखिएगा, सच अ ब्रिलियंट एडवोकेट. So I've just dropped the link on Twitter. Let's wait who actually comes here. So to complete the 3300 hours, we have to work really hard. See, people are here, and my friends are there on Twitter making spaces. This is the bad part of it. When a person starts something, it's really difficult to digest it. It is what it is. Anybody starts anything, uh, it's really difficult for you to digest that thing. It or not, whether people actually they don't like the content, perhaps people don't like the content. People like entertainment, as I have been repeatedly saying this. People only like content which entertains them. उनको दुख स्टोरीज पसंद नहीं है, उनको उनको रियलिज्म में बिलीव नहीं करना, उनको रियलिस्टिक मोड पे नहीं आना, उनको क्लासिकल नहीं पढ़ना, उनको तो यही एल्केमिस्ट और चेतन भगत की बुक्स पढ़नी है, हाफ गर्लफ्रेंड, टू स्टेट्स वगैरह वगैरह, उनको वैसी बुक्स पसंद है. उनको खलील जिब्रान पसंद नहीं, उनको एरिस्टोटल पसंद नहीं, उनको प्लाटो पसंद नहीं, उनको सॉक्रेट्स पसंद नहीं, उनको रवीश कुमार पसंद नहीं. उनको तो रवीश कुमार नेगेटिव पर्सनालिटी लगती है. ठीक है, उनको राणा अयूब परहैप्स एक, छोड़िए रहने दीजिए, इतना काफी है, इतना काफी है. ये मतलब कितने दुख की बात है कि मैं यहाँ पे बैठा हूँ, मेरे दोस्त ट्विटर पे बैठे. चलिए, दे कैन नॉट सपोर्ट मी सिंस दे कैन नॉट सपोर्ट देमसेल्व्स. हम स्टार्ट करने जा रहे हैं. इट्स ऑलरेडी लेट, 8 मिनट्स हो गए. आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू स्टॉप एनी मोर. हम स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. Every time I met Rajan Priyadarshi, I felt I came back with more. Question. Your CM Narendra Modi is very popular here in Gujarat. Answer. Yes, he fools everybody and people get fooled. Question. In that case, as additional DG, you would have had a tough time working under them. Answer. They never had the guts to force me to do anything illegal. Question. Lawlessness is rampant here. No. Hardly any officers who are upright. Answer. There are very few of them. This man, Narendra Modi, has been responsible for the killing of the Muslim across the state. Question. Acha. I hear that the cops also tore the line of the government. Answer. All of them. Like this PC Pandey, it all happened in their presence. Question. Most of the officers say that they have been implicated wrongly. Answer. What wrongly? They have done it, which is why they are going now behind bars. They killed a young girl in an encounter. Really? Huh. They called her a Lashkar terrorist. She was from Mumbra. The story created was she was a terrorist who had come to Gujarat to kill Modi. And it's false. Yes, it's false. And ever since I got here, everybody is talking of the Sorabuddin encounter. The entire country is talking of this Sorabuddin encounter. They bumped off that Sorabuddin and Tulsi Prajapati at the behest of the minister. The minister Amit Shah, he never used to believe in human rights. He used to tell us that I don't believe in these human rights commissions. And now look at this. The courts have given him bail too. Question. So you never served under him? Answer. I did when I was the ATS chief. He transferred Vanzara and brought me in. And I am a person who believes in human rights. So this Shah calls me to his bungalow. Now I have never gone to anybody's bungalow, never nor anybody's residence or office. So I told him, Sir, I haven't seen your bungalow, and he was baffled and asked, Why haven't you seen my bungalow? Then he said, Okay, I will send you my private vehicle. Come in that. So I said, Okay, so you send me your vehicle. So when I reach, he says, अच्छा आपने एक बंदे को अरेस्ट किया है ना जो अभी आया है एटीएस में उसको मार डालने के का है आई डिडंट रिएक्ट एंड देन ही सेड देखो मार डालो ऐसे आदमी को जीने का कोई हक नहीं है So I immediately came to my office and called a meeting of my juniors. I feared that Amit Shah would give them direct orders and get him killed. So I told them, see, I have been given orders to kill him, but nobody is going to touch him. Just interrogate him. I have been told I am not doing it, so you also are not supposed to do it. The question. That was some bravado. Answer. This Narendra Modi called me the day I was retiring, and then he said, So what are you planning to do now? And all those kind of questions. So I told him how I was stifled. Then he said, अच्छा ये बताओ सरकार के खिलाफ कौन कौन लोग हैं मतलब कितने अफसर सरकार के खिलाफ हैं Then I asked Modi, am I allowed to ask you something? So he said, ask. I asked, in the last 2 decades, I have served in various capacities. Did you hear of anything against me? He replied, saying, I have been doing great work. Then I told him, Sir, in that case, for the last 4 years, my ACRs have been termed as excellent and outstanding by my immediate seniors and home secretaries. Then why did you downgrade them? Why was my performance downgraded by you? I told him that I got all the information through RTI. He was stunned. He said, I don't call up any officer and HS. I said, Sir, you don't have to call up the HS. You knew everything as the file came to you. So basically, I could have become the DG, but he did not allow me to. Question. So, why isn't there any DG in your state? Answer. Because Modi has to take revenge against an officer called Kuldeep Sharma. Question. And I have been told that he has his own team of officers. Answer. You know, when I was IGP Rajkot, there was communal riots near Junagadh. I wrote FIRs against some people. The Home Minister called me up and said, Rajanji, where are you? I said, Sir, I am at Junagadh. So he said, Acha, write down 3 names and arrest all these three. I said, Sir, these three are staying with me. And let me tell you, sir, that they are all Muslims, and because of them, normalcy has been restored. And these are the people who have brought the Hindus and the Muslims together with their efforts and brought the riots to an end. So he said, देखो CM साहिब ने कहा है, and then this guy only was the CM, Narendra Modi, that it was CM's order. I said, sir, I can't do it even if it's the CM's order because these three are innocent. Question. Who was the one talking to you on the phone? The Home Minister, Gordhan Zarafia. When was this? Around July 2002. So Zarafia said he himself come. And so who were these people? Answer. Are they were the good people, Muslims, big people who were actually helping bring an end to the riots. Anybody else in my place would have arrested them. And what about Singhal? He was the one who asked me to speak to you. Answered. I was his boss. He is now in the ETS. He was my probationer, deputy SP. So who all worked under him? Answer. Of those in jail, for instance, Vanzara was under him. So what they did was I was border range IG. So they got me transferred because they had to bring in Vanzara. So they downgraded the position to accommodate him. So is the police anti-Muslim here? Answer. No, actually these politicians are. So if an officer does not listen to them, they send them to a side posting. So what are they supposed to do? Question. The person who Amit Shah asked you to bump off, was he a Muslim? No, he wanted him to go because there was some pressure from the business lobby. Question. In fact, I was told that some officers had been forced to do the Ishrat Jahan encounter. Answer. See, between you and me, at time these people, Vanzara and gang, had arrested five Sardars, and one of them was a constable. So Vanzara said that their encounter should be done because they were terrorists. Luckily, Pandian was the SP, and then he refused. So those five were saved. Question. But the officers are not really anti Muslim. Answer. No, they are not. The politicians make them do this. If you are upright, they will never let you be in a posting. Look at what they have done to Rajneesh Rai and Rahul Sharma. Answer. This government is communal and corrupt. Like this, Amit Shah would come and boast to me about what he did to instigate riots in 1985. He would call everybody to his place, like in one meeting, he called the Home Secretary and Chief Secretary and one MP, and I was serving as the IG then. So the MP told Amit Shah that you could not even transfer one constable. So Amit Shah turned to me and said, "Why was this not done?" I had to retort that the constable had done nothing wrong. He was only stopping the BJP MP's son. But I am surprised he would tell you. Answer. He would confide in me. In fact, he was the one who told me about Ishrat's case. He said that he had kept Ishrat in custody before they were killed, and them that all five of them were killed, and there was no encounter. He would tell me she was no terrorist. Question. I am surprised he let you be in the ATS with such a crucial position. Answer. Huh. They thought I was their man and would do as they tell me. So Shah told me, see, we have two pivotal positions vacant, the ATS and that of the Commissioner of Police, and we need our men in both these positions. So we are making Ashish Bhatia the CP and you the ATS chief. He told me that, see, we have trust in you, that you will work as the chief state tells you. So I said, if you really had the faith, why not make me the Commissioner of Police? Look at PC Pandey. He did not take any action against rioters. He should be booked. He is in the good books of the CM. He he is his blue-eyed boy. He was responsible for the killing of the Muslim. Hence, you see, he has been given a position post-retirement also. Although I have an excellent rapport with him, I know what he has done in wrong. What he has done is wrong. Sometime in May 2013, my investigation of the Ishran Jahan fake encounter case dropped a bombshell on the Gujarat dispensation. I had scooped one of the most crucial documents in the Ishrat Jahan and Sadiq Jamal fake encounter cases. The investigation had the Ministry of Home Affairs in a tizzy. News channels went berserk. I was on every possible news channel explaining the details of the investigation. For the first time, perhaps in the fake encounter case, a direct link had been established with intelligence officials. This time, the mastermind seemed to be Rajinder Kumar, the central IB officer posted in Gujarat. The expose dominated headlines with the MHA on the back foot and the CBI forced to question the IB officer. More importantly, Rajinder Kumar, special IB director, whose role in the Ishrat encounter had been established. More recently, Rajinder Kumar was in the news yet again after ex-Home Secretary G.K. Pillai, who had in his tenure stated that Ishrat Jahan was to be given the benefit of doubt, told the media early in 2016 that he had changed the affidavits at the behest of the Congress government in power. This led to Rajinder Kumar giving a serious series of TV interviews stating that he was being implicated. Questions have been asked about Pillai's dereliction of duty and the timing of his alleged truth when he is now on the board of directors of the Adani Group. Worse still, none of them seem to have any remorse about the fact that, irrespective of a person's credentials, an encounter was unconstitutional. None of them addressed why almost the entire Gujarat Home Department was caught on a sting tape by Singhal, talking of obfuscating the Ishrat Jahan investigation. The crux of my expose was laid bare in the first paragraph of my article, which read, Central Bureau of Investigation is set to drop a bombshell in a case of extrajudicial killing of four alleged terrorists by the Gujarat police 9 years ago. Tehelka has learned that the CBI will testify before a trial judge in Ahmedabad that one of the accused officers has, in a sworn testimony, identified Rajendra Kumar, now a special director with the Intelligence Bureau, as a mastermind of the encounter killing of a woman and three men, all Muslims, on 15th June 2004. Explosively, a testimony by another officer claims that Kumar met the 19-year-old woman Ishrat Jahan while she was in illegal police custody before being killed. Another testimony by a cop claims that an AK-47 assault rifle, which the police said belonged to those killed, had actually been sourced from the Gujarat unit of the IB, to which Kumar belonged then, and planted on the four dead bodies. The CBI also possessed a secret audio recording made by a key accused, Jehal Singhal, who was one of the police officers who shot the four that fateful night. That recording of November 2011 is a conversation among Gujarat's then Junior Home Minister Praful Patel, who had succeeded Shah in the job a year earlier, Additional Principal Secretary Girish Chandra Murmu, an IAS officer who has served in Modi's office since 2008 and considered to be one of his closest advisors. And you know, Girish Chandra Murmu was also the governor of Chink. The state government's most senior law officer, Advocate General Kamal Trivedi, his deputy, Additional Advocate General Tushar Mehta, who is right now, I think, Solicitor General of India, an unnamed lawyer, and Singhal. Patel, not to be confused with a new namesake, who is a union minister, lost in the assembly elections in December and did not find a place in the Modi's new cabinet. It was as if the missing pieces of the jigsaw puzzle were beginning to emerge and fit together perfectly. Priyadarshi was the state ATS chief, and Amit Shah had confided in him that Ishrat Jahan was being held in a bungalow, confined in custody before she was killed in cold blood. But like every investigation, I had to pay a price for this one too. There were stories linking my faith to my journalism. Within days, I had started getting calls from editors of various channels and lawyers that MHA officials had been slandering me by saying that there was a salacious CD of me with a CBI official. I was stunned to hear this. I knew this was an attempt to silence me, thinking that I would be intimidated by fear of character assassination. I went to my father, who was till now blissfully unaware of what was happening, my brother Arif, a pillar of support to me, and my mom, the backbone of my determination, joined us when I called for them. My dad realized I was nervous and looked at my mother questioningly. She looked equally confused and nervous. I told them all about my phone calls and the rumors which had been circulated. I distinctly remember my father's wise words. देखो बेटा ये सब ड्रामा है उनको कहो सीडी दिखाएं हम सब देखेंगे. He laughed. My mom started to breathe easy and caressed my hair. She said, बेटा हम सब जब तुमको ट्रस्ट करते हैं, जब तुम्हारी फैमिली ने एक सवाल नहीं पूछा तो तुम्हें किसी और की क्या फिक्र. My brother, equally supported me, reacted like my senior media professional he is. Write a letter to them, lash out at these disgusting souls. Is this all they could come up with? But I did not have to do much. My co workers and colleagues from journalism fraternity stood firmly behind me like a rock. Shoma Chaudhary, who was then the managing editor, wrote the editorial that week in response to the malicious campaign against me. Senior editor Rana Ayub has been having a close taste of this in recent weeks. Over the past 3 years, Rana, one of Tehelka's most sterling and fearless journalists, has doggedly chased the story of fake encounters in Gujarat. Her journalism has been driven by a keen sense of justice and constitutional values. Yet, as her scoops on the Ishrat Jahan case began to make national headlines, she has had to face the humiliating experience of being assessed not as a professional but as a Muslim journalist. Equally dismaying, at this a despicable slander campaign has been unleashed against her. Shadowy whispers about a CD involving her and CBI officers that have absolutely no basis in truth. India is an imperfect experiment, but if we abandon the poetic idea that underpins it, this is what we will get. Hindu nationalists, Muslim journalists, and women professionals, we try to defund with scurrilous lies. The planted CD story died a silent death. On the other hand, revelations were being made each day about Amit Shah's connivance with state cops to carry out surveillance against innocent civilians. One of them being a young architect named Mansi Sun. It was evident that one of the key people at the center of this was G.L. Singhal, once an Amit Shah confidant. The conversations were recorded at the significant time when the sit appointed to look into the Ishra Jahan case had begun to make initial investigations into the case. Singhal, the officer concerned who had begun to see through the state policy of using officers from backward classes, wanted to safeguard himself. And what better way to do than use the methodology that was made rampant in Gujarat at that time, illegal phone taping. Data obtained through RTI by activists in Ahmedabad had stated more than 65,000 numbers in the state were illegally being snooped upon. The list included members of the opposition, those in the party who were trying to rebel against the establishment, journalists, and cops. Singhal was no stranger to the mechanism and the dirty tricks which he had confided about us. And so began the task of taping the phone calls of the ministers and the conversation. One of the most significant such taped conversation recorded Shah's orders to Singhal to keep surveilling the activities of the young architect from Gujarat, Mansi, who had been introduced to him during the rehabilitation phase following the devastating Bhuj earthquake by an officer called Pradeep Sharma. I had found out that Mansi was at this point living in Bengaluru. I had all the facts of the surveillance on the tape, but I was aware that by publishing the tapes would mean that Mansi's privacy and peaceful existence in Bengaluru would come to an end. Time was running out. My editor Sharma would call me from her personal assistant's cell phone on a PCO number I had given her. What have we got? She would ask. What's going on here? I would give her the details of the transcripts and she would squeal with excitement. It's huge, Rana, she would exclaim. But for me, there were many loose ends which had to be tied together first. I needed to get in touch with some bureaucrats, home secretaries, principal advisors, who were the ones responsible for signing various incriminating documents and who would have taken orders from Modi and Shah. Most of them had been grilled by the Nanavati Commission, where they had developed amnesia. Most were not complicit directly, but by staying silent on any knowledge of wrongdoing, they had become obfuscations in the due process of justice for the riot victims in Gujarat. It was easier for my colleague Ashish to get local gundas to speak about their bravado or killing Muslim women during Gujarat riots, but I was looking at the key man responsible, the Home Secretary of Gujarat, the DG of Police, the Commissioner, and the head of IB during the riots. My head was spinning each day. As if this wasn't enough stress, Manik Bhai asked us to vacate our rooms for an in-house conference because delegates would be occupying all my rooms at the foundation. I was without a roof again. Chapter 5, In Between. Before I can proceed to honor the characters of the story, it is important to introduce one of Gujarat's famous women cops, Usha Radha. I did not intend to sting her, but there was an element of suspicion about her. I realized that there would not be much harm in doing so since meeting Radha, who belonged to the backward class, would only strengthen the facet of my story. Radha was a junior of the Abe Chudasama and a loyal one at that. Soon after I left Gujarat, Usha Radha resigned from the Special Task Force formed by the Supreme Court to probe the 16 police encounters in Gujarat that took place between 2003 and 2006. Already arrested by the CBI in the Sorabuddin Sheikh fake encounter case, Chudsama had been Radha's boss between 2007 and 2010. When they were both posted in the crime branch, speculations were rife that Radha would influence the course of the investigation in favor of Chorosama. The Gujarat police control room had become a favorite with me by this time. Every time I needed a contact of a police officer, I would call in a clipped accent and introduce myself as an American filmmaker making a documentary on powerful Gujarati women. The concerned police official who would be on the line would generously provide me with not just the landline but also the cell phone number of relevant police officers. When I called Usha Radha, she was in the middle of an interrogation. I left her a text. 2 hours later, she called back asking me to see her at the circuit house in Ahmedabad. I wore a denim shirt with a black t shirt with loads of chunky jewelry for the meeting. There was a bandana around my head, and I carried a camera, a sling bag. The receptionists escorted me to the seating area. Within minutes, Radha arrived, a woman in her early 30s with her hair in a boy cut and a tall, lean frame. She wore a collar t shirt and jeans with sports shoes, which added to gravitas to her personality. She gave me a warm hug. Hello, Maithili. How are you? She asked with a warm handshake and a broad and generous smile. Once seated, I heaped praise on her personality. Not all of it was untrue. Usha did have a pleasing personality and a smile that would allay all my fears. Within an hour of our conversation, she had promised me to take me to the movie, shopping, and to one of Gujarat's most famous thali joint. Treat me like your friend and feel free to ask for any help, she told me before embracing me and dropping me off at the Nehru Foundation in her official jeep. Next evening, there was a message from Usha on my phone. Maithili, meet me at SG Highway at 9:30 p.m. I replied in the affirmative immediately, but the moment I hung up phone, I could feel anxiety rush through my body. Why would she went to meet me at SG Highway at 9:30 at night? Feeling quite nervous, even fearful, I took an auto to ST Highway. The moment I reached the specified spot and called her, Usha asked me to hand the phone to the auto driver to let him know the exact location where he was supposed to take me. The driver grudgingly gave the phone to me, complaining that I should have told him about the long journey ahead. It was close to 10 by then. I had no option but to heed Usha's request. If I was scared, I could not show it. We drove for several kilometers before I saw Usha's policemen on the road. There were only three cops waiting by the van. I almost wanted to request the auto driver to take me away from there, but it was too late. Hello, Usha said, walking towards me. She asked me to sit in her jeep. Let's go. I am taking you to a place you will like. I wanted to weep for the first time during my Gujarat. During my stay in Gujarat, my hands went cold as I sat in the jeep. Usha kept on talking while I was uncharacteristically silent. I wanted to pick up the phone and call my family to inform them about the last person I had met. Should I encounter by an accident? But I had misread Usha. We stopped at one of the Ahmedabad's most hip restaurants. See, I wanted you to see that Ahmedabad is no less than your America, she beamed. I smiled a smile of relief which Usha would never understand. I excused myself a little later and made for the washroom. I don't think I would have ever wept as much as I did in that toilet cubicle. I was coughing. There was water streaming from my eyes, nose, and I almost vomited. Before leaving the restaurant, after a conversation that had her convinced about my admiration for her, we promised to meet the next day at her residence. At the restaurant, the conversation veered from the Muslims who had been terrorizing Gujarat to her senior Abhay Chodasama being a hero of sorts. The next evening, I was to meet Usha at her residence. I unplugged my special kurta from its charging device. I checked the camera, wore the kurta, and left the narrow foundation. On my way down, I was introduced to a new inmate at the foundation, Raji, a girl from Mumbai, who was to be my next door neighbor. Pani and her friends had just returned to the hostel. Another German girl had joined us at the hostel. She was chatting with her family on Skype and asked me to say hello to her room as I walked past her room. By the time I reached the quarters for policemen near Shahi Bagh, Usha had changed into her casuals and the thali for dinner had been set. Her daughter was working on her laptop. She introduced me to her, telling her to take tips from me about what college in US she should apply to following her school education. Usha was a single mother. She had divorced her husband and now lived with her parents and children. आज तुमसे तुम्हारी पुलिस फोर्स के बारे में नोट्स लेने, I told Usha. आज नहीं, आज फिल्म देखने जाते हैं. I was disappointed but did not allow it to show on my face. Within minutes, we reached the popular cinema hall in Ahmedabad, but the moment we entered the premises, my heart sank. There was a frisking zone and a metal detector at the entrance. My kurta had a camera attached to it. This was it. I thought my mouth going dry with fear. We were in the queue. Usha chatted one to 1,000 while my attention was focused on the barrier. Within minutes, the detector would detect the camera and I would be caught then and there. But miracles happen. It did that day when a constable standing close to the checking point saw Usha and me in the queue and escorted us from the other entrance. Even though it was December and very cold at night, I could feel sweat dripping down my back, and as I realized that I had been saved yet again. Loaded with popcorn and coke, we entered to watch No One Killed Jessica. Ironically, a movie based on Tehelka investigation on the Jessica Lal murder case. As the credits started rolling, the film acknowledged the work done by Tehelka and Usha whispered to me, have you heard of Tehelka? These are the bunch of rascals. They move around with cameras attached to their phones and sting people. They did a sting of our people in Gujarat also. Really? I asked with an extra effort to narrate. What's the Helka? Some TV channel? No, no. It's a website. Never watch it. All bad things about India. Usha replied as we continued watching film. That night, as I returned to my room, I smiled at the circus I had become a part of. Smiled at the irony of the situation and the apprehension I had earlier whether I would be able to up to the expectations of my seniors. Would I be unable to unearth the truth? I also had 2 days to look for another place to stay. Pani offered to let me share her room, but I could not take the risk. Every night I would change my kurta, my diary, and my watch, all of which had cameras attached to them. There was no way I could jeopardize my situation with the slightest mistake. I asked Pani for her laptop. I wanted to use my personal email, which I had to avoid using from my own. That night, when I logged in as Rana U, there were at least 1,000 mails waiting for me. Many from my friends who were curious about my disappearance. I had deleted my Facebook account so that there was nothing on the internet which could lead to a picture of Rana Ayub. I immediately wrote a mail to a friend from the US who had family in Ahmedabad, wondering if I could stay with any of her friends in the city as I was tired of staying in hostels. She wrote back with an alacrity I did not expect. Her family and friends were in Rajkot, but one of her family friends had a bungalow on SG Highway. The owners were not in the country, and the house was looked after by a housekeeper who stayed in makeshift digs in the compound. With the logistics discussed, I packed my stuff and went to see Manik Bhai in his cabin the next morning. I had to make the payment. You can come back 10 days later, he assured me. By then, the delegation would have returned and a room could be made available. The bungalow, although a beautiful structure with a huge garden and a lawn, was certainly not a place for a single woman to stay alone. To its left and right were bungalows under construction and makeshift slums where the construction workers resided with absolutely no light. Post sunset, there was no mode of communication, and the caretaker used a bicycle to travel in the market, which is about a kilometer away from the bungalow. There were broken wires, wood bricks, and mountains of cement in the premises. Kalubai, the caretaker, was informed of my arrival, and before he could open the main gate, I was welcomed by two stray dogs. Kalubai had three daughters, and stray dogs were a part of the family and later would turn out to be my companions in solitude. There was another surprise that awaited me at the house, which Kalubai did not deem very important to tell me about. On one of the evenings when I returned to the bungalow in an auto, it was dark. There was no point knocking on the gate as Kalubai was in his little house with doors locked on and the radio blaring. I called him on the phone and asked the driver to press the horn so somebody inside would hear me. I was carrying a portable torch with me to help find my way in the dark lane with no lights whatsoever. As soon as I flicked the lights on inside the gate, the dog started barking. I was glad because I would attract Kalubai's attention. Sure enough, Kalubai called out loudly, "आ रहा हूँ मैथिली बहन." The dogs carried on barking, however. By the time I took a shower and ate my dinner, the dogs were still barking. I stepped out and thinking they were hungry. I called out to Kalubai, asked if he could feed them. अरे बहन एक बार वो सांप बोले मैं चला जाऊंगा सब शांत हो जाएंगे. He replied, सांप आइसक्रीम किधर? The next 15 minutes, Kalubai and his daughters exclaimed joyously about a cobra which had made the bungalow his home for the last 1 year. When they took me to find it, I saw the snake perched on the wall. Since that day, I could not sleep well at night. Every time the dogs would bark, I knew the snake was out of his resting place. I would often wake up apprehensive that somebody was trying to jump the fence. Something inexplicable had begun to happen to me. My pulse rate would suddenly accelerate, and I would break into cold sweat every night. My throat would go dry, and I was finding it increasingly difficult to keep down any food. What if one of the officials discovered my true identity? This bungalow was the easiest place to cause me harm. In the days to come, when there was nothing much to do in the afternoons, Kaulubai's daughters would come to me with the school books. I would make tea and would enjoy it with some parleji. The dogs had grown very fond of me, and I had reached the stage where I found the snake playing with the dogs entertaining. Kaulubai's daughters and I had named it Mukhya. The girls would hurl pebbles at Mukhya while I would sit at a distance and shoot it with my phone. Chapter 6. Ashok Narayan. Mike was yet to return from Delhi. His family was visiting him in India, and I had asked him to be discreet about his work in Gujarat. Around this time, Tahalka put a testimony of Gujarat IPS officer Sanjeev Bhatt on its cover. The testimony was published by my colleague, who was then editor of my investigations, Ashish Khetan. According to Sanjeev Bhatt, he was present in an alleged meeting which took place between Modi and the concerned police officers and bureaucrats, in which Modi gave them a free hand to kill Muslims during the riots in 2002. Most of the journalists, activists, and the lawyers covering the Gujarat riots were perplexed. Many I knew spoke to personally did not buy this argument, suggesting that no chief minister would jeopardize his political career by giving an order like this amidst dozens of top bureaucrats and officers. There were too many questions. Why did it take so long for Sanjeev Bhatt to come out and give this statement? In many years of reporting on Gujarat, I had never ever come across Sanjeev Bhatt or any accounts by him. Shoma called me and asked me if I could get the officers to speak about Sanjeev Bhatt. I was a bit wary of asking a question about this, an aspect so specific that it could arouse suspicion. I remember telling Shoma that somehow I could not bring myself to trust Sanjeev Bhatt's account for many technical reasons. I promised her that if needed, there was an iota of truth in his testimony, I would find it. I wanted to meet the most important decision makers during the Gujarat riots. There were four individuals who had been in key roles during the Gujarat riots: Home Secretary Ashok Narayan, DG of Police Chakravarti, Commissioner of Police PC Pandey, and Swarna Kanta Verma, who was the principal advisor to the same during the riots in 2002. I had already started meeting Ashok Narayan. According to the Tehelka report, which carried Butt's testimony, most of the officials I have mentioned above had developed an amnesia during the cross examination by the Nanavati Commission. According to the testimony of the 1988 batch IPS officer of Gujarat cadre, Sanjay Bhatt had attended the meeting held by the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Mr. Modi, who had asked the top officials to let the Hindus vent out their anger against the minority community. Later in October 2014, Supreme Court quashed Sanjay Bhatt's plea, calling it an attempt to influence the court through politics and activism, the court said. When he had made such sensational disclosures, after 9 years, what prevented him from not disclosing the emails and keeping quiet is inexplicable conduct. In the statement before Justice Nanavati Commission also he has failed to state about the emails when he has sent the emails to the effect that his potential was not fully exploited by the rival political party. What prevented him from stating about the emails before the commission also is not understandable. The overall conduct of the petitioner does not inspire confidence. In August 2015, Sanjay Bhatt's services were terminated from the Indian Police Service by the Ministry of Home Affairs under the Modi regime. Sanjay Bhatt has always remained a controversial figure with too many contradictions in his claim, concede his colleagues. It was most relevant then that Ashok Narayan be asked to answer this question among other riddles of 2002. When I met him, Ashok Narayan lived in a quiet bungalow with his wife in Gandhinagar. Yet again, it was not very difficult to reach him, courtesy the very efficient Gujarat police in control. The meeting took place some time late in December 2010. I had called him on his landline and told him about my documentary, which would be an ode to the lives of the most important Gujarati men. I told him that his credentials were very impressive and that I would love to meet him with my colleague. The night before I had to leave for Ashok Narayan's residence, I realized that I had exhausted my lens solution. At 8 in the night, when even getting hold of basic commodities was difficult, I could not think of getting lens solution from anywhere. I searched online for alternate solutions. A thread of discussions on some sites suggested that I soak my lenses in salt water. The next morning, right after my Parle-G tea regime, I took the lenses out of the salt water bowl and put them on. My eyes started burning, and I realized I had made a bad situation worse. I asked Calabai for ice cubes. With my eyes burning in dread, I hailed a cab and gave the cabby Narayan's house address. On my way, I received a text from Ajay that he was in Gandhinagar and wanted to check if I was around. I was welcomed into the house by Narayan's wife, a pleasing personality who ensured I finished the namkeen which she had recently got from a well-known retailer. I was told Mr. Narayan, an elderly gentleman in his 70s, was getting ready. Over 2 cups of chai, my family life was discussed. So was my ancestral home in Kanpur, the prospect of my marriage. She was a simple middle class educated woman who was enjoying a life of domestically while her daughters lived abroad. She showed me the pictures of her 2 daughters, offered to share their wedding album on the next visit. Ashok Narayan entered the room with a warm hello and checked with me if his wife had been hospitable enough in his absence. Ashok ji was old enough, or perhaps older than my father, a spiritual man who believed in the concept of live and let live. His knowledge of literature and mythology left me astounded. He was a poet too. He loved Urdu poetry and had authored 2 books himself. I was the daughter of an Urdu writer who had won laurels for his work and was raised amidst mehfils and mushairas at my residence. The urge to reply to Ashok Narayan in an Urdu couplet was strong, but I had to refrain from doing so. Maithili was the daughter of a conservative Sanskrit teacher and had lived abroad. Also, Maithili was not particularly fond of Muslims as a community as part of their part of her identity. But Narayan did not betray any element of bigotry. that was associated with the officials allegedly involved in the Gujarat riots. He was a liberal when it came to religion, and that night he mailed me on my ebook on spirituality when I told him about my frequent bouts of anxiety. In him, I found a man who was respectful of both individuals and cultures and religion. All the more reason for me to have been optimistic about extracting information from him about the course of events during the Gujarat riots as well as the fake encounters. Which I eventually managed. He told me that as Home Secretary of Gujarat, he had firmly started that no permission would be given for any political rally, including that one planned by Praveen Tagodia. He also said that he had been against the suspension of one of the finest officers of Gujarat, Rahul Sharma. He was suspended by the state under Narendra Modi soon after the riots. These were conversations that spanned 4 days, mostly over tea and on and one occasion over lunch made by his wife. I was distraught the day the couple invited me to lunch. They had begun to treat me like their own kin. They often said that I had replaced their daughter's absence in their home. My heart wept silently as I heard about Ashok Narayan's lack of conviction in going all out against tacit encouragement given to the Gujarat riots by the state administration under Modi. This was not my personal deduction. Ashok Narayan stated it in as many words. On the day I was supposed to have lunch with the Narayan family, I had asked for a couple of hours from the couple, so I had enough at my hand to profile them. I wore the favorite green kurta, this time with a shawl wrapped around my arms, and my watch, which had a full, dull fluorescent light every time the camera fitted in. It started rolling. I also had the diary, which had a camera stitched in. One never wants to take a chance with these meetings, so multiple cameras were advised. Lunch was ready by the time I reached. It was on that day that I began talking to him about his most crucial responsibility, that of being the Home Secretary of Gujarat. The ambience was just perfect. I had initiated the topic in a manner that looked like just another light conversation over food. Narayan spoke uninhibitedly. By the time we sat down the post lunch time, we had he had started getting into the details of how Narendra Modi had handled the riots. I remarked, "You know, Mr. Narayan, I have been doing a Google search on you for the last 1 week, and your name threw up so many links on Gujarat riots, Modi, the various commissions. It has been so intriguing for me, and I am sure it must have been very difficult for you to deal with a man so controversial who almost bordered on the Gujarat on the wrong during the Gujarat riots. For a person like you, so idealistic, so humane, I can only try to imagine what you must have gone through." And this began the conversation. Question: You must have gone red in the face when the CM asked you to go slow while controlling the riot. He would never do that. He would also never write anything on paper. He had his people, and through them, the VHP, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and then through them, it would trickle down the informal channels on the lower rung police inspectors. Question: And then you were rendered helpless. Answer: Precisely. And then we would say, "Oh, why did this happen?" But by then, things would have already taken place. Question: And there is no proof for inquiry commissions. Answer: Several times ministers were standing on the roads and inciting crowds. One such incident happened when I was sitting in his room and we got a call. Then I told him a minister was doing this, so he recalled. At least at that time, recalled. Was he a BJP minister? Yes, of course. His own minister, a guy. Question: There was a Maya Kodnani too. I hear she has turned quite anti-government. Answer: She could have been there. Yes. Uh, Question: It was manic. Answer: I will tell you something firsthand. I know of a Muslim civil services officer, administrative officer. He called me and said, "Sir, save my life. My house is being surrounded." I called the commissioner of police, recorded or didn't, but I think the man was saved. Next day, the officer called and said, "Sir, yesterday somehow I was saved, but it does not look likely today." So again, I called the administrator and asked him to save him. After 15 days, this officer walked into my cabin. He said, "Sir, it was the same story. In the colony, Hindus were in a majority and the Muslims were being killed." He said to me, "When you rang and the police force arrived and the minister was standing outside the outside leading the crowds. A police officer saluted him. He saw the police officer and told everything was fine. Later, somehow, one police officer recognized me and saved me. But this minister is behind bars. Question. Answer. They are all out. But someday has to do that. Unless someday gives evidence. But somebody has to do that. But unless somebody gives evidence, how can you do that? Question. Nobody has the guts to do that. Answer. Nobody has the guts to do that. Question. Who will take action against the minister's answer? Let me tell you, I was the vigilance commissioner post the home secretary position. You know there is the Lok Ayukt in every state which looks after the minister. So one day I go. Now honestly, AC Cameron में मक्खियाँ नहीं होता, वरना I could have used the word कि वो मक्खियाँ मार रहे थे. So I asked, what is happening? Answer. They said, sir, what to do? Nobody complains about ministers. When people are not willing to take on ministers in case of bribery and corruption, how will they gather courage to go against ministers involved in riots? किसकी शामत आई है? Unless they come forward and they are so smart that they will make conversation so smartly on the phone and they will call up the officers and say, Acha, take care of that area. Now, a common meaning of the layman technically would be take care that riots don't take in that area. But the real meaning is that take care that the riots take place in that area. They don't do things themselves. They are agents and agents and agents. There are agents and agents and agents. Acha, then you see that the FIRs are registered against mobs, and so how will you arrest a mob? Question. But haven't the commissions been helpful, those set up to look into the riots? Answer. There was a Nanavati commission, nothing has still come of it. They have still not been able to give any report. When I was the Home Secretary, I had given the orders that nothing will happen unless written orders were given. So when the Band call was given, the Chief Secretaries Subba Rao called me and said one leader from VHP Praveen Dagodia wants to hold a rally. So what do you think? I said, sir, no such permission should be given because the things will go out of hand. The CM came to know of this. He said, how can you say this? We have to give the permission. I said, okay, then give me written orders. He just stared at me. Both Narendra Modi and Praveen Tagodia were once synonymous with the growth of the Hindutva in Gujarat. Narendra Modi, 64, and Dr. Praveen Tagodia, 58, used to attend RSS shakhas together in the state. They were in the much shared anecdote. There's a much shared anecdote about the duo traveling on a motorcycle or scooter across Gujarat, spreading the Sangh's ideology. Tagodia always rode the bike with Modi riding pillion. Tagodia was a cancer surgeon who joined the VHP, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, in 1983, and Modi, a full-time pracharak, was also inducted into the BJP in 1984. When Keshubai Patel was chief minister, both were in the core committee which took important decisions for the government. When Keshubai had to face rebellion from the Shankar Singh Waghela, who also imprisoned Tagodia, it was Modi who rallied behind him. From 1995 to 2001, when Modi was almost exiled from the state and became a persona non grata in Gujarat, he would spend most of his time in VHP office as opposed to the BJP office, where he was no longer welcome. Where he was no longer welcome. It has been reported that it was Advani who convinced Tagodia to bring Modi to Gujarat as chief minister in October 2001. Tagodia agreed to the change and got his right man Gordon Zarapia inducted as the Minister of State for Home in the Modi cabinet. Tagodia had substantial saying in posting of saffronized police officers, many of whom played a dubious role in the post-Godra posts in February-March 2003 when the VHP and Bajrang Dal cadres unleashed a wave of terror in the state. In recent public memory, Hardik Patel, a young 21-year-old Masiha of the Patel committee, has starred the state were reservations. He unmasks a sword and asks a news reporter if he knows how many hands he has chopped off. It is believed that Hardik is a creation of Keshubai Patel and Praveen Tagodia, who were later sidelined by Modi in Gujarat. Hardik, it is said, is a ploy to oust the powerful Anandiben, the current chief minister of Gujarat and one of the Modi's closest aides. Anandiben is herself a Patel and now finds herself in the situation as Keshubai did before Modi's entry into Gujarat. The 2002 Gujarat riots and aftermath had Praveen Tagodia provoking the Hindu masses with the VHP cadre running amok. In a speech delivered in Gujarat, Tagodia said terror was unleashed at Gujarat station because this country follows Gandhi. We locked Gandhi away on Feb 28. Reform yourselves, Muslims, or we forget Gandhi forever. Till we follow Gandhi's policy of non-violence, till we continue to follow the practice of kneeling before Muslims, terrorism cannot be elevated. My brothers, we have to abandon Gandhi. You know the Ramayana. It's relevant to the Godhra incident at 7:45 a.m. A signal, Falia, the burnt S6 coach, was Hanumanji's tail set on fire. The audience claps, raises the slogans of Jai Shri Ram. He then asks the crowd, which is gathered at night in thousands, who burned the tail of Hanuman. Ravan burnt it. Hanumanji had gone for a walk. We hear Hanumanji had come to Godhra. Crowd laughs and cheers. Hanumanji came to Halul, Kalul, Sardarpur, and he stayed put in Karnavati, Ahmedabad, and didn't want to go back. Their reference was clear. Ravan was a term for Muslims. It was a clarion call and kill and butcher Muslims in Gujarat. While Tagodia was doing the hard work, Modi was increasingly being perceived as the Hindu Hriday Samrat of the majority Hindu population, which was constantly reminded that the Muslims were out to finish them off. However, this camaraderie came to an end days after Modi became CM. There was a fallout between the two. A report in two Times of India put it rather succinctly. The subsequent assembly elections in 2002 saw Tagodia address more than 100 rallies in support of Gujarat, using a helicopter non-stop almost 2 weeks. Things changed. When Modi won the elections, he immediately dropped Zarafia from his Council of Ministers in a clear signal to Tagodia that his interference in the government was no longer required. The process of consultation with Tagodia and other Sangh Parivar outfits stopped. Within days of meeting Ashok Narayan and gathering his taped bits on the Gujarat riots, I told him that I would want to meet his friend and confidant from those days of rioting, Mr. Chakravarti, who was the DG of police in Gujarat at that time. I was allotted to his role when Narayan and his wife kept saying how Narayan's only friend Chakravarti made life less miserable for him in those terrible days. This at a time when police officials had decided to compromise on their integrity to the Modi dispensation. The meetings and the disclosures made by Chakravarti will be discussed in the next chapter. But while on Ashok Narayan, it is important that I share with the reader the remaining conversations that took place with him. By the time I had met Chakravarti in Mumbai and at Riyadh, my first meeting with him saw the discussion about the Gujarat riots vis-a-vis other officers had become easier and less suspicious. Question: is Chakravarti such a controversial man? Answer: see, he was the head of police, so whatever happened, the blame would come on him and the Home Department. Even Human Rights Department called it an unconstitutional fever, so all of us came in it. Sanjeev Bhatt was in IB. Chakravarti was the DG. So weren't you in the meeting? Which meeting? Question: apparently a very controversial meeting in which the CM asked the officers and the bureaucrats to go slow. Answer: haha, I was there in that meeting, I told you. No. Question: so you weren't called by the set? Answer: oh yes, they did and grilled me, which is why Chakravarti said that the meeting got them all stuck. Even Chakravarti was a part of that meeting. Question: Chakravarti said those who were close to the scene, some officers like PC Pandey, they were saved. Answer: no, but PC got controversial later due to the sit. I mean, he also became controversial. Question: but I hear he's close to the CM. Answer: yes, he is. But this is what happened. If you decide to toe the line of the ruling party, then you will not have any problem. Question: and he is completely the CM's man. Answer: yes. And if he didn't, then he would be thrown away like Chakrabarti. Like they had to give me a retirement job as they had to supersede me because they wanted to make me the junior chief secretary. How should? So that's how I become vigilance commissioner. His wife adds. Not just him, but three other officers like him were superseded. Question. Like that Sri Kumar who spoke about? Answer. Yes, he will give a lot of masala for your film, mostly sensationalism but mixed with truth. The funniest part is Sri Kumar was on a side posting during the riots, and post riots he was asked to join in, and that too at my and Chakravarti's recommendation. He had CBI experience, but later he started filing affidavits at times of events which he was not privy to, and so he too was later superseded. In fact, the CM wanted to suspend him. He asked him to not do so. We asked him, in fact, the CM wanted to suspend him. We asked him not to do so. If it looked like he was working more for the press, leaking out stuff to the press. Question. But why has the CM been so much in the line of fire? Is it because he is with the BJP? Answer. No, because he supported the Vishwa Hindu Parishad during the time of the riots. He did it to get the Hindu votes, which he did. He did what he wanted to do, and that happened. But he asked people to go slow. He would not say that in the meeting. He would say that to his men. He would convey to the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and then to officers like Tandon and the other officers in the VHP. And as an officer, you can choose to toe the line. Chakravarti did not toe the line. We too were the only people. We did our job. I told them when I joined the forces, it was to serve the people, not to serve the ruling party. Question. Why didn't the others do that then? Answer. Because they had to play the game. They had a goal. You have to compromise. Look at people like Chakravarti. They haven't got promotions, not sent abroad. But he did what his conscience said. How did the people outside know of this controversial meeting? Answer. There were the there was this minister here, Heran Pandya. He was the first one to say in the press. Question. Who were all in this meeting? Answer. Commissioner, Chief Secretary, ACS, Home Secretary, BJP officers. Even for a layperson, the above conversation would reveal the level of complicity of the state administration during the Gujarat riots. What Ashok Narayan was telling me was that most of us knew, but it had never been said by an official figure. The man on whom most eyes were fixed during the Gujarat riots. What is more revealing is that the sociological and political context the ex Home Secretary talked of when he spoke about the Gujarat riots and what it meant for Narendra Modi. Okay, everybody gone? Hello, am I audible? सब चले गए क्या? हेलो 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 कोई सुन रहा है या सब गए? Anybody here? Okay, Z is here. Inan is here. Okay, should I continue or is it enough? 50% of the book is completed. 48%, 2% रह गए, ये खत्म करते हैं, ठीक है. What is more revealing is the sociological and political context the ex-home minister, home secretary talked of when he spoke about the Gujarat riots and what it meant for Narendra Modi. That his objective can be ascertained from the fact that at no point does he try to mix facts with fiction. He even expresses his apprehensions about the manner which Sri Kumar leaked his affidavits to the media. He further talks of a meeting which took place in Gandhinagar during the Gujarat riots, but at no point suggests that the CM gave marching orders against Muslims. Rather, he makes a more nonce argument about how these orders were given personally to officers who found favor with the dispensation. I sat there listening to this gentle, unassuming man as he said things to me that he had not even stated during his cross examination by Nanavati Commission. VHP at the behest of BJP called the Band, and that's how it began. Question. That was a big problem for you to handle. Answer. Yes. Unless the signal went from the BJP, it was difficult to handle. What is Modi's reputation? He is worshipped. Orthodox Hindus believe he holds the flag. Wasn't his role partisan? He could have apologized for the Godhra incident and he could have apologized for the riot. Question. I have been told that Modi did play a partisan role, though, that of instigating, like bringing the bodies from Godhra and Delhi, dallying on decisions. Answer. I had given a statement that he's the one who had made the decision of bringing the bodies to Ahmedabad. Walaikum assalam, Mudassir. Okay. Question. Then the state must have been up against you. Answer. See, bringing the bodies to Ahmedabad flared up the whole thing. But he was the one who took the decision. As we were talking, Ashok Narayan had a surprise visitor, Kailash, Kailash Nathan, a man known to be the closest to Narendra Modi and his principal advisor then. Kailash Nathan had dropped in after Ashok Narayan had left a message at the CM's office that his brother-in-law wanted to contest the assembly election from the Himachal Pradesh, which were due soon. Modi, who had been a former in charge of the Himachal Pradesh before he was sent to Gujarat, still enjoyed a great deal of clout in the state. There was something very discomforting. Was this the reason why officers refused to go all out against Narendra Modi? Because of this careful generosity, it had made me uncomfortable. After Kailash Nathan left, Ashok Narayan's wife told me how important he was and that I should seek his help should I ever face any difficulty in making the film. The conversation with Narayan continued about after the principal advisor left. Question. What has been the most challenging part of your job? Answer. I always felt bad that so many people were killed during the riots. For instance, many journalists asked why we hadn't resigned. I told them that if I felt guilty, I would. Question. But they weren't wrong. You were caught in a politically volatile situation. Answer. No state government has to face such riots. We had only four companies for riots. Even CRPF is not competent, but we would have been happy to have even one team. And the government at the center too was the BJP. Question. So the CM could have easily asked for more troops. Was it like a liaison between the center and the state? Answer. Of course, liaison was there. Our CM could talk to Mr. Advani at any time he wanted to. Question. I have been told that they are good friends. Answer. Very good friends. Yes. So this was one factor. Question. No forces. Didn't you tell the CM? Answer. He knew everything. You think he was not aware? Secondly, the Hindu community, their behavior really shocked me. Looting houses shamefully. They used to come in cars and loot humans at their worst. Question. What led them? Answer. The Godhra incident. Question. Must have been quite a turmoil reporting to the same people. Answer. They never had the guts to tell me to do anything wrong. Question. Was the government's ire directed against you? Yes, of course. I said, give me the orders on paper, whatever it is. See, all the officer at lower levels, everybody has the right to arrest these politicians indulging in such crimes, but most of them have come under political pressure and compromised. Question. That's what happened during the riots. Answer. Yes. In the era of the mobile phones, you don't need to give orders on papers. You just need to call. Question. The CM would have hated you. Answer. Not too sure if he hated me, but he would have surely wished there was somebody else in my place. Question. How did that they all converge? How did the riots took place? Answer. It was planned by the VHP. It was the gruesome, both Godhra and the riots, and none could be justified. Question. The riots were a reaction to the train burning. Answer. You can't justify A with B. Question. The CM should have stepped down. He was then the chief minister, especially after so much has happened. Answer. At one stage, he was going to be changed in the Goa meeting. Apparently, he resigned, but under Advani's pressure, Advani pressurized Vajpayee to not accept resignation. I had given a presentation about the riots to them, to then PM Vajpayee, and Modi was also there. The CM would not have been very happy with that question. Answer. It was not a question of being happy or unhappy. I had to give presentation of what happened. At that time, I also could see that Vajpayee was unhappy with Modi and his rule. So that's 50% of the book completed. आप में से किसने ये बुक कंटिन्यूअसली सुनी है अभी तक? रेटेड अभी कितने बंदे हैं यहाँ पे? 2-3 बंदे? जो भी हैं, रेटेड आउट ऑफ 10, 50% हमने कंप्लीट कर लिया। सो ये जो कन्वर्सेशन है, दे आर ऑल पार्ट ऑफ स्टिंग ऑपरेशन एंड दे आर रिकॉर्डेड एज वेल। ये हवा में नहीं है। आप में से जो भी यहाँ पे जिनने कंटिन्यूअसली बुक सुनी, नहीं मुदस्सिर आपने कंटिन्यूअसली नहीं ना सुनी। INN is giving 8.5. I would give 8 only. 0.5 में खा लूंगा इसका। देखिए इतनी सीरियस बुक को इसने अच्छे से प्रेजेंट नहीं किया है। क्योंकि ये एक सीरियस इंसिडेंट और बेहतर हो सकता था। परहैप्स मतलब राइटर और जर्नलिस्ट में यही फर्क है कि राइटर को सिर्फ लिखना आता है, जर्नलिस्ट को दोनों चीज आएंगी, जर्नलिज्म भी और राइटिंग भी। अब उसमें हाथ उसका कमजोर होगा राइटिंग में। चलिए, दैट्स मोर देन एनफ। अभी कितने बंदे हैं यहाँ पे? 4। ओके। सो इज दैट इट और शुड वी कंटिन्यू? रूमी को पढ़े क्या? जल्दी बता दीजिए, या मैं स्ट्रीम एंड करूं? एनसी डेविड अब नहीं आती। हाँ हाँ, रूमी पढ़ेंगे। तो मैं देख रहा हूँ एनसी डेविड, बाकियों का मैं नाम नहीं लूंगा अब। मुदस्सिर तो कंटिन्यू आते हैं। सिनेमैन अब कंटिन्यू आ रहे हैं। आइनैन भी कंटिन्यू है, जी भी कंटिन्यू आ रही है। सो हु हैज ड्रॉप्ड? एक तो शिवांग, एनसी डेविड, राइजिंग स्टार, इज्जो, और कौन सा नाम मुझे याद है, सोनी फारूक, और कौन सा नाम है जिसने ये स्ट्रीम ड्रॉप कर दिया अब आना यहाँ पे? हम्म, सारिम बिल्कुल भी नहीं आता। अल्तमश नहीं आता। अनडिफाइंड मुनीब कोई आता था, डी नाम लेके, वो भी नहीं आता, बिल्कुल भी नहीं आता। अंकिता समथिंग लाइक दिस उनका नाम था, वो भी नहीं आती अब। हम्म, ठीक है, कोई मसला नहीं। सी इफ दीज पीपल वुड हैव कंटिन्यूड सपोजली, अभी हम कितने हैं यहाँ पे? 5। तो वो सब अगर कंटिन्यूअसली आते, हम 5 नहीं होते, 15 होते। परहैप्स अगर वो रह जाते तो 15 बजाय हम 25-30 होते। दैट्स द डिफरेंस। जो कंटिन्यूअसली आपको सुने ना, वो कंटिन्यूअसली सुनने चाहिए। दैट्स वेयर योर कल्ट इज फॉर्म्ड। क्योंकि मैं भी फिर समझ जाता हूँ, अगर सपोजली अगर कुछ मुझे पढ़ना हो जो आप रिक्वेस्ट करें, मैं भी समझ लेता हूँ हाँ कोई नहीं पढ़ना है, बिकॉज ये लिसनर्स हैं मेरे। अभी देखो क्या होता है कि बीच में कोई आता है, कोई जाता है, कोई नहीं, लेट इट बी। ये भी ठीक है, कोई मसला नहीं। जिन्होंने अभी तक साथ दिया उनका भी शुक्रिया, जिन्होंने इससे पहले साथ दिया उनका भी शुक्रिया, और जिन्होंने बिल्कुल भी साथ नहीं दिया उनका भी शुक्रिया, बिकॉज वो मुझे ज्यादा ही कुछ स्ट्रेंथ देते हैं आगे चलने की। रियली। चलिए रूमी पढ़ते हैं। बायोन्सी हमने पढ़ा था। ये प्रॉब्लम है मेरे में, ये मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि इसको कैसे दूर करूं। मुझे याद नहीं रहता मैंने कौन सा पढ़ लिया और कौन सा नहीं? मिक्स की चेंज से पढ़ लिया। Why wine is forbidden ये पढ़ लिया था। और रिजरेक्शन भी ये पढ़ लिया था। ये क्या है? द ड्रीम दैट मस्ट बी इंटरप्रेटेड ये भी पढ़ लिया था। पिक एक्स ये भी पढ़ लिया था। जिक्र इसका तो मैंने अच्छे से समझा दिया था। ये पढ़ना है हमें। एंड शैल बी ब्रॉट इनटू प्रेजेंस। कोर ऑफ मैस्कुलिनिटी हाँ। यही पढ़नी है। पहले ये पढ़ ले। दरवेश एट द डोर। पहले ये पढ़ते हैं उसके बाद वापस आते हैं। हम्म, ठीक है पहले यही पढ़ लेते हैं। हाँ कल हमने जिक्र पढ़ा था और मैंने वो समझाया भी था अच्छे से। शायद वही समझाया था जिक्र शायद समझाया था। तो दरवेश एट द डोर। A dervish knocked at a house to ask for a piece of dry bread or moist. It didn't matter. This is not a bakery, said the owner. Might you have a bit of gristle then? Does this look like a butcher shop? A little floor. Do you hear a grinding stone? Some water. This is not a bell. Whatever the dervish asked for, the man made some tired joke and refused to give him anything. Finally, the dervish ran in the house, lifted his robe, and squatted as though to take a shit. Hey, hey, quiet, you sad man. A deserted place is a fine spot to relieve oneself. And since there's no living thing here, or means of living, it needs fertilizing. The dervish began his own list of questions and answers. What kind of bird are you? Not a falcon, trained for the royal hand. Not a peacock, painted with everyone's eye. Not a parrot that talks like for sugar cubes. Not a nightingale that sings like someone in love. Not a hope bringing message to Solomon. Or a stork that builds on a cliffside. What exactly do you do? You are known to species. You haggle and make jokes to keep what you own for yourself. You have forgotten the one who doesn't care about ownership, who doesn't try to turn a profit from every human exchange. Then we have this point core of masculinity. The core of masculinity does not derive from being male, nor friendliness from those who console. Your old grandmother says, maybe you shouldn't go to school. You look you look a little pale. Run when you hear that. A father's stern slaps are better. Your bodily soul wants comforting. The severe father wants spiritual clarity. He scolds but eventually leads you into the open. Pray for a tough instructor to hear and act and stay within. We have been busy accumulating solace, make us afraid of how we were. I honor those who try to rid themselves of any lying, who empty the self and have only clear being there. Homer and the old poet. The harper had grown old, his voice was choked sounding and harsh, and some of his harp strings were broken. He went to the graveyard at Medina and wept, Lord, you have always accepted counterfeit coins from me. Take these prayers again and give me enough to buy new silk strings for my harp. He put the harp down for a pillow and went to sleep. The bird of his soul escaped, free of the body and grieving, flying in a vast, simple region that was itself, where it could sing its truth. I love this having no head, this tasting without a mouth, this memory without regret. How, without hands, I gather rose and basil on an infinitely stretching out plain, that is my joy. So this water bird plunged into its ocean. Job's fountain was where Job was healed of all afflictions, the pure sunrise. If this Masnavi were suddenly sky, it could not hold half the mystery that this old poet was enjoying in sleep. If there was a clear way into that, no one would stay there. The Caliph Umar, meanwhile, was napping nearby. A voice came. Give 700 gold dinars to the man sleeping in the cemetery. Everyone understands this voice when it comes. It speaks the same authority to Turk and Kurd, Persian, Arab, Ethiopian, one language. Umar went to a place and sat by the sleeping man. Umar sneezed, and the poet sprang up, thinking this great man was there to accuse him. No, sit here beside me. I have a secret to tell you. There is gold enough in this sack to buy new silk strings for your instrument. Take it, buy them, and come back here. The old poet heard and realized the generosity that had come. He threw the harp on the ground and broke it. These songs, breath by breath, have kept me minding the musical moods of Iraq and rhythms of Persia. The minor Zirafgand, the liquid freshness of the 24 melodies. These have distracted me while caravan after caravan was leaving. My poems have kept me in myself, which was the greatest gift to me. That now I surrender back. When someone is counting out gold for you, don't look at your hands for or the gold. Look at the giver. But even this veiling recrimination, said Umar, is just another shape for enclosure, another point on the reed. Pierce the segments and be hollow with perforated walls, so flute music can happen. Don't be a searcher wrapped in the importance of his quest. Repent of your repenting. The old man's heart woke, no longer in love with treble and bass, without weeping or laughter. In the true bewilderment of the soul, he went out beyond any seeking, beyond words and telling, drowned in the beauty, drowned beyond deliverance. Waves cover the old man. Nothing more than can be said of him. He has shaken out his robe, and there's nothing in it anymore. There's a chase where a falcon dives into the forest and doesn't come back. Every moment the sunlight is totally empty and totally full. होपफुली आपको इसमें कुछ भी समझ नहीं आया होगा. इसके बाद और एक poem. An Egypt that doesn't exist. I want to say words that flame as I say them, but I keep quiet and don't try to make both words fit in one mouthful. I kept secret in myself an Egypt that doesn't exist. Is that good or bad? I don't know. For years, I gave away sexual love with my eyes. Now I don't. I am not in any one place. I don't have a name for what I give away. Whatever Shams gave, that you can have from me. I think इतना काफी है आज के लिए. It's already 12. आप लोग सो गए हो मुझे लगता है. Okay, we have another subscriber. मतलब क्या नहीं ऐसा नहीं सोए हो? मुझे लगा सो गए हो यार. Let me check the count of subscribers. पता नहीं मैंने चेक नहीं किया था. Oh, it's 978. 22 remaining till 1K. एक रात के इस वक्त पे मुझे पार्टी दे दो. एक अ, मुझे एक कलाम याद आ रहा था इनका। देखता हूँ, फिर देख रहा हूँ। अ, हाँ, ये है असरारुल हक मजाज का ये सुनिएगा। शहर की रात और मैं नाशादो नाकारा फिरूं। शहर की रात और मैं नाशादो नाकारा फिरूं। जगमगाती जागती सड़कों पे आवारा फिरूं। शहर की रात और मैं नाशादो नाकारा फिरूं। जगमगाती जागती सड़कों पे आवारा फिरूं। गैर की बस्ती है कब तक, गैर की बस्ती है कब तक, दर बदर मारा फिरूं। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। झिलमिलाते कुमकुमों की राह में जंजीर सी, रात के हाथों में दिन की मोहिनी तस्वीर सी, मेरे सीने पर मगर रखी हुई शमशीर सी। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। ये रूपली छाँव ये आकाश पर तारों का जाल, जैसे सूफी का तसव्वुर जैसे आशिक का ख्याल। आह लेकिन कौन जाने कौन समझे जी का हाल। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। फिर वो टूटा एक सितारा, फिर वो छूटी फुलझड़ी, जाने किसकी गोद में आई मोती की लड़ी। हुक सी सीने में उठी, चोट सी दिल पर पड़ी। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। रात हंस हंस कर ये कहती है कि मैं खाने में चल, फिर किसी शहनाज़े लाला रुख के काशाने में चल। ये नहीं मुमकिन तो फिर ए दोस्त वीराने में चल। ए गमे दिल क्या करूं, ए वहशत दिल क्या करूं। हर तरफ बिखरी हुई रंगीनियां रानाइयां, हर कदम पर इशरतें लेटी हुई अंगड़ाइयां, बढ़ रही हैं गोद में फैली हुई रुसवाइयां। ए गमे दिल क्या करूं, ए वहशत दिल क्या करूं। रास्ते में रुक के दम ले लूं मेरी आदत नहीं, लौट कर वापस चले जाऊं मेरी फुर्सत नहीं, मेरी फितरत नहीं। और कोई हमनवा मिल जाए ये किस्मत नहीं। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। मुंतजिर है एक तूफाने बाला मेरे लिए, अब भी जाने कितने दरवाजे हैं वहां मेरे लिए, पर मुसीबत है मेरा अहदे वफा मेरे लिए। ऐ गमे दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। जी में आता है कि अब अहदे वफा भी तोड़ दूं, उनको पा सकता हूं मैं या आसरा भी तोड़ दूं। हाँ मुनासिब है ये जंजीर हवा भी तोड़ दूं। है गम दिल क्या करूं, ऐ वहशत दिल क्या करूं। ये असरारुल हक मजाज है, इनका कभी पढ़िएगा अगर फुर्सत में। ये क्या बोल रहे हैं, पैसे बचा रहे हैं। अरे पार्टी दे दूंगा ब्रो, once this channel gets monetized, parties on. Take care. It'll take us a lot of time to get this channel monetized क्योंकि सुनने वाले बहुत कम हैं, बट फिर भी आप लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आप यहाँ आते हो और कुछ सीख के परहैप्स जाते हो। टेक केयर एवरीवन, गुड नाइट।